Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now here is something called subtracting polynomials. And what I want you to get out of this one is that it's not the same thing as addition. And that's really important to understand that subtraction is not the same as addition. So because they're not the same, I have to make little adjustments and little changes here. So again, like I did before, I'm just going to put little ones in front of my groups, just to, so some people like to see it. You just put it there. So there's a 1 in front of this group, and there's also a 1 after the minus sign. So here we go. Taking a look at this, if I multiply this group by positive 1, presuming that you've watched my addition video, I talked about how this group, when I look at it with the PEMDAS, that inside here there are no like terms. Yes, there are x variables, but that just because they have an x doesn't make them a like term. What makes them a like term is that they have the same variable with the same exponent. So this exponent is a 3, and this x doesn't have an identical exponent, so it can't be a like term. And this x, there's nothing in here I can combine, it's just this statement. And when I come over here, you look inside here, and there's nothing you can do inside this one either, because yes, they have x variables, but none of them are identical exponents, so I can't combine them. So what I'm going to look at here is I need to drop these parentheses, and I can't just drop parentheses without having some sort of explanation as to why I'm dropping them. And sometimes an explanation is good enough. You don't need to show the work, just to understand the explanation of what's going on and why you can drop them. So the way that I teach this particular thing is that if I'm subtracting, there's a positive 1 out in front of this group. And if you take 1 and multiply it by anything, it doesn't change anything about that group. It's just that group. So what the distributive property does is it takes something that's an expression through multiplication of a quantity, and it turns it just into another expression. So if I multiply this by 1, there's my multiplication of this quantity. That's going to turn it into some new expression. And because I'm multiplying by 1, it is just that expression. So this I can rewrite down here as 6x cubed minus 5x squared plus 2x. Now the problem is when I get to this minus sign. If you multiply a positive number by a negative, it changes, its sign. So it's changing something. But if you multiply it by negative 1, the only thing that it's changing is not changing the actual number, it's just changing the sign of that number. So when I take a look at this, if I'm subtracting a polynomial, all I think about is, okay, that 4, the only thing that's going to change about that 4 because I'm multiplying by a negative is its sign. So instead of writing this as a positive 4, I'm writing it down here as a negative 4x squared. Now remember, it's a quantity and it's through distributive property. So I want to remove every term. Therefore, I need to multiply every term by that negative 1. So negative 1 and 2 makes negative 2x. Negative 1 and negative 4x cubed makes positive 4x cubed. And negative 1 and positive 5 makes negative 5. So then I'm just back to, the idea of combining like terms, right? So the like terms that I have here are 6x cubed. So negative 5x squared. So negative 5x squared and negative 4x squared makes negative 9x squared. Positive 2x and negative 2x make 0, so I don't write it, so I just cross them out. And then I have I also have here a 4x cubed, I'm sorry. I forgot to write that down here. So that changes this from a 6x cubed and a positive 4x cubed to a 10x cubed. So sorry about that little mistake there. So there's my 4x cubed gone, and then I have a minus 5. So again, some things to note here that happen, that if I have two terms that cancel each other out and make 0 in front of the variable, you don't need to write it. It's eliminated itself. And what I'm left here is my final answer is 10x cubed minus 9x squared minus 5. So the important thing to get out of all of this is that negative 1 has to multiply every value in here to change the sign. And that's it. So I hope that helps with any homework problems you're doing.